What are some like basic things that people should do to support gut health? Like, or do you recommend we just cut out gluten? What, like, should we take a probiotic? Like, what are some of the, just like the really practical, simple things that are easy to implement kind of day one?
So day one, absolutely gluten is not a fad. Gluten free is not a fad. Gluten on this, like in this, our country right now and in a large part of the world is being grown in a way that's contaminated with glyphosate, which is Roundup. So when I have patients completely remove it from their diet, and remember that's wheat, but it's whole wheat and white wheat, white flour. So you're going to do bread, pasta, cookies, crackers, cakes, things in bags and boxes. You need to be reading. And if you want an alternative, there's plenty of gluten-free options that taste good. So getting that specific compound out of the diet, it has to be for 2 to 3 weeks, not just lowering the amount you're eating. Just do this experiment. You will not be sorry, where if you completely remove it, it's enough time for the antibodies to go down, and then you can go out and eat it and see how your body responds. So that's basically free to try. And the impact, I've had patients come back and one say to me, oh my God, I'm so mad at you. And this was her second visit. And I'm like, oh God, what did I do? And she said, I've been fighting with my sister for 5 years about gluten. And I finally did it, like you said. And within 48 hours, all my joint pain went away. My rash cleared up. I don't have a headache and my diarrhea stopped. So that's like an extreme example. But most of my patients will see enough of a benefit. They'll also realize that avoiding it is not that hard. And then they just will stay off of it. So absolutely gluten. And unfortunately, it's really hard to do both gluten and dairy. But the cows are now being fed genetically modified gluten in their feed, genetically modified everything and gluten in their feed. So it's kind of getting into the milk. So most of us are doing a pretty good job on milk substitutes, like almond, coconut, oat, but also the cheese is where it's really tough. But I think minimizing dairy as best as you can, getting off the gluten is a number one for me with patients. And then in terms of supplements, absolutely a good quality probiotic. Usually it needs to include several different strains. So we have one that has some of the basics, but also something called Saccharomyces, which is a strain that helps with yeast, because the other side note is almost all of us, if we've not really focused on the gut, will have an overload of yeast compared to the good guys. So I kind of describe it as the inmates ruling the asylum, where the probiotics are supposed to be in charge. The good guys are supposed to be in charge. And just because of a combination of processed food, alcohol, antibiotics, just this long history of toxin exposure, the yeast and bacteria tend to overtake. So getting a good quality probiotic, and then working, usually with patients, we'll have to work on knocking down the load of yeast and bacteria. So there's different supplements that can do that. And then a good quality powder that is got glutamine in it, which is the number one nutrient to help heal the lining of the intestine when it becomes leaky. So we have different packages for the supplements that can go together to help heal the gut. But those are all a good place to start.